body structure thing. Welcome to the next episode of A Body Structure Thing. Our team is devoted to improving the day-to-day life of the individual through preventative and recovery care based on structural improvement of the body. I'm your host, Ron Buford, and with me is my co-host and developer of the SRM body structure system and Intelligent Threads product line, Brian Brzezinski. Hey man, you ready for episode 2?
I hope so.
Man, I enjoyed our first episode, and I was like, get all the cobwebs off, and yeah, I'm ready to go. All right, so this episode, we're going to be talking about SRM specifically, synergy release method, why it's so effective, and really dive down into your processes and how it all works.
Okay.
So let's just kick it off and get rolling.
Well, yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. So most of the time people come into my clinic and they say, Brian, I have this problem.
Right.
Very few times people come in and they say, I want you to just look at me and make sure I'm right.
Right.
But really when we get them right, it's really, I believe it's preventative. It helps them not hurt. So really they should come in and say, I want to make sure everything's right. But
right.
I get it. People want to come in because they hurt.
Sure. And
once we get the structure right, a lot of times that pain can go away because it's not because we're healing them or anything like that. It's just because we're taking the pressure off the body in a systematic way.
Okay. And how do these people find you?
All word of mouth. This is like the first time we've ever done anything.
Any type of anything. Right.
20 years. At one point I was like 6 months booked out.
Wow.
Yeah. I think I'm 2-3 months out right now.
Right. Yeah. Wow. That's incredible. So they come in.
And I don't have very many repeat clients. So that's even crazier.
That is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
You have to have your bench of people to come in and out, and that's pretty much what our medical system relies on is, hey, you're going to be coming in here for the next 6 weeks, and we're going to be working on you and see if we can help improve you at all.
Which can be a very good thing.
Right.
Especially if you're, somebody break their hip and you're teaching them how to walk again. It takes some time. You can't do that. You can't do that quickly.
Yep.
If you had a stroke and you're recovering from it, there's some time that it takes to recover. So that there is need for that.
Right. Right.
Yeah, so it's not a downplay on that at all. But I'm going to try my hardest to get everything right the first time. And that's what the people that do SRM, that's what I want them to do. I want them to try to get it right the first time.
Okay.
Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we miss it.
It's just an interesting concept, right? I mean,
that's how it should be, though, right? It should be.
No, I don't disagree. But everybody's lived through this is the process with medical, right? And it's a hard concept to grasp that you only have to see them once.
Well, and I think it's a little different too. Like I mentioned earlier, there's different things that they do that you do need to see them twice. Sure. So it's not bad. It's just that we're different. We have a different thought process. Like I said, I'm not a doctor. I've never been trained in anything like that. Right. So my thought process is different, and that's what makes me different is the way I approach it. I approach it from it's a structural thing. Sure. And I look. That's a good throwing. I like that. Yeah. Because I believe you can get the structure right. You correct all things. Obviously, there's lots of stuff that you don't correct as well. If you have some kind of disease or something, it's not going to correct that. Sure.
Or if you have a massive car accident or something along those lines, it may take you a long time.
You have a tumor in your brain. Man, I don't think we're going to touch that. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So there's different limitations. We're not a magic bullet. Even though we seem to help a lot of people, but I kind of know my limitations, what I can and can't help as well. Right. But when it comes to structure, we can get it.
Just absolutely incredible.
Unless you're just really messed up.
It happens.
But most everybody thinks they are messed up that comes in, but they say, oh, it must be the most person you ever saw. And I go, you walked in here. No, you're not even close.
Right. Right. No kidding. So take me through, I'm a new client and I walk in and meet you for the first time. How do you look at people? How do you assess and then start diving into your process?
Well, we have forms you fill out. You come in, you sit down, and I like to listen. You can find out more about the person by listening. So I have them tell their story. What's wrong? Some people have long stories, some have short stories. Sure. But I like to listen.
And you are a storyteller too.
I'm a storyteller too. I'll start talking and
Yeah.
Anybody that's been around me goes, that guy can talk. And then what I do is I show them what's wrong structurally.
Okay, like take me through that.
When I see it. So I'll stand you up and put you in front of the mirror. In fact, we're in my room that I work all the time. We have a big mirror over here, which y'all can't see.
Yeah.
And I have you face the mirror. And first thing I like to do is I like to show you the imbalance in your shoulders. And just about everybody that comes in, their shoulders are a little bit off. The right shoulder stay lower than the left shoulder.
Sure.
And then we go down the hips, and then the hips will be in a different position. Typically, every once in a while, I'll find somebody with straight hips, but it's very rare.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's so common nowadays. I can almost just close my eyes and go, your hips are off.
Sure.
Because everybody's hips are off.
Right.
And then I show them maybe a couple other things. We might do a balance test. We might do this or that. And then I lay them down on this table.
Right.
And I show them some more stuff. So one of the things, I just kind of start getting into my philosophy, or what I think, how the body interacts. And quite frankly, I could be wrong. I guarantee there's stuff that I don't understand that I'm not getting.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm getting something right because the results are right.
Right.
But at the same time, there's people that I'm still trying to figure out. So it's not like a magic bullet, but at the same time, I would say a ton of the people that we see don't have to come back.
Right. And so, to put this in a little bit more perspective for people listening and myself, if I have an issue and it's 20 or 30% better, then I'm a happy camper.
Right.
If I'm like, oh wow, that's definitely an improvement. That's just mind blowing for myself. Right. And great example here. So my wife gave birth to our son a few years back, and she had a lot of hip pain. Yeah. A lot of hip pain. And, of course, as the husband, you can't really do much to other than just like, hey, what do you need, honey? Let me help you. Happy wife, happy life, right? We went to PTs. We went to, what's the pin in the arm?
Dry needling?
Yeah. We did all kinds of different types of therapy around. We live in Dripping Springs, so right around Austin area. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you need to go see my buddy Brian. And this is the first time that I'd probably mentioned you in years, because you worked on me for 20 years, but I haven't seen you in years because I was fine, right? Mm-hmm. And she's like, you always say that, but you never go. And I was like, well, I haven't really needed to go.
Right.
And he's like, but she didn't grasp that concept either of,
right.
No, if he's this amazing, witch doctor, which is another episode, by the way.
Not a witch doctor.
But that's what I always called you. Is like, you're my witch doctor.
A lot of people do. Yeah.
Humana, you're healed. Right. And I was like,
that was a good technique.
I know. You're like, you got to love our producer.
He's funny, but go ahead.
He's hilarious. But it's one of those things where, people don't believe that it's true. Yeah. And you'd have that experience. So,
and quite frankly, there's a lot of people out there that they shouldn't believe. There's a lot of crazy stuff out there.
Oh, totally.
I don't expect anybody to believe me until they experience it.
Right.
And then if you still don't want to believe, that's fine, but hopefully you feel a whole lot better.
Exactly. No, that's a fair point,
Yeah.
And so I remember her coming down and just an incredible amount of pain. She's laying on your table, and, she's telling me this story, which still resonates with me. And I think we're going to have her on a couple of different episodes about pregnancy and pain. She's currently pregnant with our daughter. So,
yay.
And she told me, she's like, he laid me down on the table and I was in so much pain. I couldn't even lay down appropriately on the table.
Yeah.
And
which is common.
Yeah. And it's just a real shame, for all that pain and, they go through with childbirth.
Yeah.
And she comes back up to me. I was like, how did the session go with Brian? She's like, I don't know how to explain it. And I was like, I was right one night. And she's like, man, I'm just blown away. I was like, well, how do you feel? She's like, about 80% better. And I was thinking in my head, what the heck, Brian?
Only 80?
Only 80? Like, really? And then, you take it back to perspective and you're just like, wow, if I could feel 20% better, it's a win.
Of course.
And she was saying 80. Well, that was the same day.
Right.
Right. And fast forward about 2-3 months, and she was like, my pain's completely gone. I have nothing.
It just took a little while for her body to uncompensate those last little bits.
Right.
And then to kind of get it and sink it again. Yeah.
Right. But I mean,
she just did have a baby. So, I mean, there's all kinds of changes that happen at that point.
She's like, I wish you were as tough as me. I mean.
Hey, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. But it goes back to most people are looking for like a 20 or 30%.
Right.
Right. And always tell people when they see you, you should feel about 80% better after your first session.
Yeah.
And sometimes it hits that, and sometimes it doesn't. But
my goal is to get them 100% better.
Right, exactly.
And if I can get their structure right, they will feel better.
Right. Yeah. So after they lay down on the table, kind of take me through that process and what helps you along that way.
Well, so then I like to look at the structure on the table, because I like to look at them standing and laying down. If they match up, then I know which direction I need to go. So I like to play off the rib cage, the hips, the shoulders, any major joint. Mm-hmm. There's different angles that they could be in, and so depending on the angle is which way, I know that the structure is gonna be off. We find that there's tons of different patterns, but a lot of people follow on a few patterns, and then there's hundreds of different ways out of that pattern. Okay. So there's one trail, and then the trail branches. Most people are in within 3 trails or 4 trails, and then those trails branch into 100 different directions.
Wow.
And so then it's just, I would say even hundreds of thousands of different directions. But then it's just figuring out, because it's endless, really. I mean, think about every combination.
Right.
I was watching a show about Legos and how they can take like 3 blocks, and it's like 100 million different combinations on 3 blocks. I'm like, oh, that's not thinking about. Yeah, there's got to be. Anyways.
It's a lot of time on somebody's hand to figure that out.
I know.
Just saying.
Well, the guy was really, really smart. Way smarter than us. Way smarter than us.
Yeah.
So anyways, so when the bones are out of place, the muscles have to play a role.
Right.
The muscles have to play a role, either being pulled from the bone being out of place. So if the bone got hit and knocked out of place,
right,
then it's going to affect the muscle.
Right.
But if the muscle gets tight and pull the bone out of place, then it still has an effect on the structure. So either way.
So walk me through that kind of visually for.
Yeah. So let's say that you have a bone. Let's say it's supposed to be perpendicular, straight up and down. Let's say there's a muscle attached to it on one side and a muscle attached to the other side. I think of it like people watching on YouTube can see it, but people on the podcast can't. So I'm trying to visualize this.
Sure.
I think of it like a telephone pole, and you have those guide wires that come down, right?
Okay.
And so if you have a guide wire that comes down and it gets real tight. Mm-hmm. Say a car hits it, knocks it over, and the car's still there, then the telephone pole is going to lean. It's going to be pushed over. Now, the other guide wire on the opposite side, it's going to be taut. It's going to be like a guitar string.
Okay.
It's going to get real taut. So you have a tight muscle on one side, and on the other side, you have a taut muscle. So a tight muscle and a taut muscle.
Right.
A taut muscle is a muscle that's being pulled apart. Think of it like a rubber band if it's being pulled apart. And so what happens is when... For example, a lot of times the muscle in your back, above your shoulder, below the head, above the shoulder, your traps, below the traps.
Yeah.
It's a taut muscle.
Okay.
And so what happens is people massage it, which is good. And sometimes there's scar tissue in there, and if you can get that scar tissue out, they're better, right?
Right.
But that muscle's taut. It's being pulled apart. And so when that muscle is being pulled apart, you can't release it until you put the bone back in place. Once the bone goes back in place, once we get that telephone pole straightened up, then that cable releases. Until then, the only way to release the cable is to cut it.
Mm.
But the thing about it is they go, well, but I've had people tell me this, well, Brian, but when the lady massages it or my spouse massages it or whatever, I do feel relief.
Right.
Well, unlike the cable, there's a nervous system that attaches to the muscle.
Right.
And when you fatigue that nervous system by pushing on it and causing it to go fatigue, the tension does come off. But once the nervous system recovers, the tension comes right back.
So you're just like one of those Theraguns, just hitting it. Yeah. Like it'll make you feel better, but
yeah, a Theragun used in the right way is an amazing tool.
Right. A
Theragun used on taut muscles only, in fact, in a short term, it could help tremendously, but long term, you're just going down the same path over and over and over. You're not getting anywhere.
Okay.
And I think that's to identify that. I think is really important to identify which muscles are taut, and which muscles are tight. Well, that's what I've worked on for 20 years is which ones are which.
Right.
And so, in that specific location above the shoulder, the bone that's holding it out of place is the rib cage.
Okay.
So if you get the rib cage in the right position, then that muscle lets go. But
it's going to release.
Yeah, the tension, it'd be like taking a rubber band and pulling it tight, and then taking your hands and moving your hands closer to each other. All the tension out of the rubber band comes out, and now it becomes relaxed.
Interesting.
But if I tightened up the rubber band again and I did everything I wanted to the rubber band besides cutting it,
right,
it would never get rid of the tension. I have to take the tension out of the muscle to get the tautness out.
Wow.
Which is very, very important. But the rib cage, in some cases, not all, sometimes you fall down, and that's why that bone's out.
Right.
So now the muscle, the in my early example where a car hits the guide wire,
right,
now that has nothing to do with it. It's
sure.
it's just that the telephone pole got hit.
Right.
And the cable has nothing to, there is no tight muscle on the other side holding it. So sometimes you can just put the bone back in place and everything's good.
Okay.
But when the muscle's tight and it holds that telephone out of place or holds the bone out of place, the only way you can put that bone back in place, but it'll pull it right back out. You can put it in place, pull it right back out. You can put it in place, pull it right back out.
Right. And that's why.
And boy, that was frustrating for a while until we figured this out.
Right. And that's what basically a chiropractor does is move the bones, but because of the muscle structure is just
in some cases
still tight, it'll go back. But that's why it takes such a longer time to manipulate.
It can
because of those. Yeah,
because I have people come in and they'll tell me stories about, or I'll give you an example. I had a lady come in one time and she said, Brian, my neck hurts real bad. I was riding on this roller coaster and my head started shaking and then I heard my neck go and it started hurting ever since and it hadn't stopped.
Mm.
Well, it wasn't the roller coaster. Now the roller coaster set it off, but she already had a structural imbalance in her body that was already causing the strain on the neck, and then the roller coaster was the tipping point, right?
Gotcha.
But I had another lady come in, actually about a week later, another lady came in, and she says, Brian, I almost canceled my appointment. And I said, why? She goes, I was on a roller coaster. And I said, you were on a roller coaster? I'm thinking in my head, you're on a roller coaster. I just had another lady on a roller coaster. She says, my neck hurt real bad, and I was riding and it was whipping my head around, and I heard my neck go, and it goes, oh. And then she goes, my neck's been felt good ever since. And the thing about that is that I consider that self-adjusting.
Sure.
And so with her, I believe that her neck was probably out for some reason, and either the muscle pulled it out, but the muscle finally let go.
And then allowed the structure to get back into place.
Or it got knocked out, and the muscle had no relevance at all.
Right.
And then her body, her neck was fine. And then the shaking was the external, the external motion that actually put it in place. Which I find fascinating.
It is fascinating.
It's fascinating.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, so it's kind of like there's thousands and thousands of chiropractors out there.
Right.
They're mostly good.
Yeah.
There are some bad ones. Out there.
Like in
anything.
Like in any.
And there's some, and I've met some amazing chiropractors, and they do a really good job. It's just that I haven't. When I start bringing up muscle, there's not much language on it. There's not that many people that talk about it. I've heard a few kind of mention their thoughts on it, and this is my thoughts on it. Right. And so this is kind of how I approach it.
There's no educational knowledge base of connectivity within every structure within the body, so to speak. There's some thought processes, but how one area affects the other. My personal, education, which is limited, right? Because I'm a business guy. I don't, really do enough.
You could be
understand enough.
You could be a DJ with your voice.
Boom, boom. Yeah, right.
Or a broadcaster. But anyways,
I'm surprised you didn't do the wah wah on that one. No, don't even.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
No.
Okay.
But
we caught him napping.
Right.
Anyways, go ahead.
I mean, it's just there's so limited knowledge on really the understanding of the total body in general, right? And I think we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago. It's just like really medical in the whole history of the world is still relatively new. I mean, we're only talking 100 years and change, 200 years of really modern medicine coming to the forefront of this is a legitimate practice. And even,
absolutely.
And even chiropractors, I mean, they didn't get legitimized until like, what, the 80s?
Yeah.
Right? So it's still a new concept for a lot of people to really, a lot of your health revolves around your body structure.
Right.
Right. And a lot of the issues that people have is because of body structure. And if we get that
I think
right,
so. It's my theory.
Yeah. Right. And well, it's a body structure thing. I mean, that's the whole reason why we're here is to have that. I know I love slipping it in every once in a while when I can, but to educate, right. And build that foundational knowledge of, hey, if your body structure is right, but you're still having issues, then, take the next step.
Right.
Right.
Correct.
Right. And you were talking about it to me earlier as well, before we started. And it's, if we can get the body structure right before a surgery or before you have to take those, that next step in the healing process,
right,
then if you have the correct structure, then your body will heal better.
Yeah.
Correct?
Correct. It just makes sense.
It's just, it does, but it's
sense.
just, that knowledge isn't out there. Like,
I've
never heard anybody say that.
Well, and I think the problem is manual manipulation or massage or working with people or working with your hands on people.
Right.
Is a dying art.
Yeah.
We don't have as many people as we used to because now the technology has got better.
Right.
Drugs have got better.
Right.
There's more drugs. There's more surgeries. And some of the surgery they do is amazing.
Yeah. I mean, incredible.
I'm going, that's insane.
I mean, I've been in the medical world, business side of it for, 15 years. And man, I've seen some just absolutely amazing technology come out.
Yeah.
But it goes back to people are looking for the quick fix or what's the easiest thing. Is it
Correct.
popping a pill? Is it going into surgery? But this is also, in my mind, a quick fix.
It can be.
Can be.
Yeah,
I mean, if it's really a structural thing.
Yeah, and that's the point. So I had a little side note on this. I had a girl that I worked on for years. She's very athletic, and we'd probably work on her every once in a while. Once a year, once every couple of years. And then one time she comes in and her hips are in the wrong position, and so we work on her, and she does good. She leaves, calls our office when she gets home. She goes, my hips went right back out. I said, well, that's weird. I said, so come back up to the office. So she did, and we looked at her again. And sure enough, they're out. And so we did our thing, and her hips are better. And so, and this is probably 10 years ago.
Right.
Maybe 8 years ago.
Right.
And so she gets up, and as she gets off the table, you can see her pelvis starting to shift right out of place. And that just doesn't happen. For me, if that starts happening, I know something's wrong.
Right.
So I said, you need to go get an MRI of your pelvis.
Right.
She had a grapefruit-sized tumor in her pelvis.
Whoa.
And so they got it. Thank God. We didn't know it was there, but we stumbled on it.
Right.
They found it. They got it out. We set her pelvis. We didn't see her for like 3 or 4 more years after that. But thank God that was there.
Right. Right.
And so we it's like kind of, we know our lane.
Right.
And if something's not right, there's got to be some external source. And now I've only had a few cases ever like that. And in 20 years, I've only had a few cases ever like that.
Right.
But, that's, how important is that though?
Yeah. I mean, the more you talk, the more I see in my mind a course of bodily health and recovery and injury and back to recovery. But it's just everything starts structural wise with making sure your body structure is correct. Now, we're not talking about nutrition and all the other
which is very
factors,
important,
which is extremely important.
Absolutely.
That we haven't dove into yet. I'm a little afraid to dive into at this point because it's so wild out there now. Yeah. Even with all the technology, and it's like I lost 50 pounds by taking this one pill, and it's tough. But as far as bodily health, non-nutrition related, getting that structure right is a huge piece of it.
I think so. So let's go back. Now the patient's on the table. We start talking about the bones. The bones influence the muscles influence the bones. So it's kind of a loop.
A cyclical cycle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so when the muscles get tight, they can hold or pull the structure out of place.
Right.
And so we have to get rid of those. Or not get rid of them, but we have to get the muscles to let go. Right. Then we can move the bone structure around. And we figured out really simple, easy movements and stretches that will do that because we've got the pull out of it.
Right.
And once the bone goes back in the right position, then the taut muscle on the opposite side, it will release. The pressure comes off of it, and then it releases. Now there's nothing left in the body to pull it back out, unless you have a tumor or scar tissue.
Something crazy.
Definitely can be other things as well.
Yeah,
for sure. But let's get the structure right first, and then most of the time, we can, if there is something else, we can address that. We can address that very easily.
Is there a lot of
or send you to somebody that can do better work than we can?
Right. Is there a lot of pain like going through that process?
And most of the time, no. I mean, if you're swollen or something,
sure.
Or if you're already in pain, if you pulled something or if you hurt something, yeah, sure, there's a little bit of pain.
Yeah.
But most of the time, there is no pain, or very little pain.
Very little pain. Yeah. I know. You've worked on me many times, and back in the old days.
Well, old days.
Well, so
back then I knew everything. I knew everything. When I was 20, I knew everything.
So did I.
But now I realize there's so much more to learn.
Well, so take me through that. So back from like what was the catalyst to change from how we used to do it, back in the Baylor days to, now where it's such a, I mean, from my viewpoint, such a smoother process.
I think I wasn't getting the results that I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just listening and deciphering why. So if I didn't get it to hold or stay or put it in place in the first place, why?
Right.
And I think that's an important question that we need to ask on anything. And I feel like I've pioneered a lot of this, even though I'm standing on the shoulders of some great people.
Sure.
And so I think the more screwed up cases I have come in that don't quite work right for me, the better I learn. So I actually really like people that are messed up that come in because then hopefully I get them right the first time. If I don't and they're 80% better,
sure.
Why isn't that 20% right?
Right.
How do I get that last bit right?
And we learn more from our mistakes than we do our successes, right?
So we can. Yeah.
I mean, that's a big piece of it.
We should for
sure. Now, how has intelligent threads made an impact in your practice? Because when we talk about, when I think catalyst and watching you work on people, you throw the intelligent threads on them. And so take me through that process.
So remember in the beginning, we were talking about the muscles that are being tight and taut,
right,
and the bones being out of place and the influences the bones. The intelligent threads gets rid of all the tight muscles. It doesn't get rid of the taut muscles because the only reason they're taut is because the bone's out of place.
Right.
But if we can get the pressure off the bone from the tight muscles, now we can release everything else. So really I used to do a lot of that manually.
I remember.
Yes. It was not fun. But now I just throw a shirt on somebody and that part is done. It's almost like the easy button or we found the reset button for the muscles. Which was really nice.
No, obviously.
I mean, it was
like,
very nice.
I'm thinking
and we get to help more people.
Right. And I mean, if you're a chiropractor, masseuse, PT. Oh my gosh. Like being able to help people a little bit easier.
Yeah. And then have something that will help stabilize their structure and keep them right, because it keeps the muscles from tightening back up and throw you back out.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did you come up with that? Like,
is that are we on this episode or is that a different episode?
No, I think that's
we're kind of getting on the board.
Like, but it just is like
it flows right into it.
I just want to know more. Yeah. I mean, this technology that can do what you says it do, says it but can say and be that powerful. It's just tremendous. But anyway, so back to SRM. Yeah. So
next episode, maybe.
So why don't we leave it at that and have a little teaser for the next time? So
okay. Hopefully that made sense.
Yeah. I think it's a great explanation of, a process that's combines a lot of different theories out there and can help people quickly within one visit for the most part and have a greater than 80% success rate, if not higher.
Yeah.
I think it's phenomenal.
That's what we try to do. That's what we want to do.
Thank you for joining It's a Body Structure Thing. I'm Ron Buford, along with Brian Brzezinski. Please join us for our next episode. Visit Intelligent Threads and like us on Facebook, Instagram, our YouTube channel, podcast, and website, www.intelligentthreads.com. Sponsored by, well, we don't have any sponsors at this point, so it seems oddly self-serving to sponsor ourselves, but oh well. Intelligent Threads, powered by Myo-E technology, the first athletic wear able to release and relax muscles with no wires or external power sources. The technology in the material helps your muscular and skeletal structure reset by releasing the tight muscles in your body. Yes, real muscle release in this new wearable technology. Now, why aren't you wearing one? Visit Intelligent Threads on Facebook, Instagram, our website, www.intelligentthreads.com, and see us on our YouTube channel. It's a structural thing. Activating your body to its full potential. The future of preventative and recovery wear is here. Be activated.